Fears that Sydney's anti-lockdown protest at the weekend could be a COVID-19 super spreader event. Dozens of people have been arrested over the protest as health authorities struggle to contain the spread of the virus. Joining us now, Australia correspondent Jason Morrison. Jason, good morning to you. Can we start with the horse, which was actually leading news here in New Zealand? How is the horse doing after being punched?
Let's start with the horse. Yes, the horse is fine. Horse to Brook. They actually train them to deal with right situations and, believe it or not, train them to cop having things thrown at them. They don't train them to be punched in the nose. And the image that will travel the world and probably be symbolic of the protest that's gone on over the weekend is that image. Man's been charged over it. He says he didn't punch the horse, it just looks like it. He's been charged with animal cruelty because, believe it or not, there actually is no offence of hitting or hurting a police horse unless you kill it, which is bizarre, but that's in fact the case. So the animal cruelty charge he faces, he's been denied bail, so he's actually spent the two nights in custody over this. The protest was ugly. It was unnecessary, it didn't need to get violent, and it shouldn't have got anywhere near the size that it did. But it did and it has, and now we kind of sit waiting. It'll be a week before we know the impact of this and if indeed it is that super spreader thing that everyone talks about.
Yeah, I was really sad and shocked to see the police officers having, what looked like pot plants thrown at their heads as they were on the horses. Let's talk about this woman in her 30s who's died. She's got COVID and died. Also, another woman has passed away, and there are no pre-existing medical conditions known at this point.
Most of the deaths, horrible to talk about like this, isn't it, really? Most of the deaths we have known with the COVID situation in Australia have been older people. There's been a couple of younger people with known respiratory illnesses, and this has been an aggravating factor. At the moment, with the case of the woman in her late 30s, 38-year-old lady who's a Brazilian student, apparently, studying in Australia, expanding her career options here as a paid student, she is not known to have any pre-existing conditions. And I think that's important. People say has no pre-existing conditions. Not known to is probably more correct, because at the moment they're still waiting on the whole medical examination they have to do to answer all of this. She died in the Royal Prince Alfred Hospital, a big one in Sydney, and had been, on a respirator, basically monitored. She was able to have last contact with her family via video connection, which is just hideous to think about that. And this morning in Brazil somewhere, not to mention friends and limited family in Australia, there are people coming to terms with the unlikely death of someone so young in the middle of this. But yeah, this is, I think, a 6th or 7th case in this recent batch of COVID infections we've had here in Sydney.
Yeah, and Jason, we'll finish this morning on the story of a couple planning their wedding, and they've been absolutely lambasted on the internet because they've offered different meal options depending on how much you spend on a gift.
Yeah, register early, explain the depth of your commitment to this wedding. You're going to give them a good gift, a great gift, or a terribly average gift. So depending on which one you tick is the level of food and service that they will provide you at the wedding. Because anyone who's been through this knows how logical this is. But if you haven't, you look back, you think, this is appalling, this is disgusting. Weddings cost, they say, an average of $70,000 now. Just think about that for a second, what that's worth to your home deposit as a young person getting married. With hindsight, we all say, well, I wish we just spent the money on getting ready to buy a house. That said, these people have gone about it the right way. They think, in their minds, they've discovered that this is the only way to make sure that at least there's some dividend for you, so you don't get the rotten old $40 toaster from Kmart. You actually get a decent gift at the end of it if you're going to provide people with $200 a head worth of food. It's crass, but isn't all economics. It's always crass.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Jason, thank you for that. That's our Australia correspondent, Jason Morrison, with us from Sydney this morning.